Hello, this is Dan Ferrisi, Group Director of Content and Editorial, Industrial and Tech at Emerald, here at the HDBaseT Alliance booth at ISE 2026, where we are celebrating 15 years of HDBaseT. And we're here to talk today about distance learning, multimodal learning, and we have two great subject matter experts with us. Thank you so much for joining us, Felipe Henao from Zoom, as well as Jonathan Owen from WolfVision. Really appreciate you both being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So let's talk just a little bit to set the stage about distance learning and multimodal learning generally. Of course, during the pandemic era, there was a need for people to embrace different learning styles because we physically could not be together. But even though the pandemic is now far in the rearview mirror, a lot of those trends for multimodal learning, distance learning have persisted. I'm interested why you think that is the case, whether you think that will continue to be the case. Is this something that will be an enduring trend in the education vertical?
I believe so. I work with education myself at Zoom. It is one of the verticals that's I've been dedicated to education for the last 20 years. And I think not only is because of the pandemic, but it is also the learners have changed. So we have now learners that, basically 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds that are just going into college. And these are individuals that have never known a world without an iPhone, without video devices, and everything's done over video. They learn easier over video. They can manage larger, or they can ingest larger amounts of data and media. So they are demanding that everything's done via video. They're also wanting to have a more flexible schedule. So a lot of learners, especially MBA learners, they want to have a life outside of campus, and therefore they're demanding the schools to provide the services via video. So obviously the demand for AV systems and creating the hybrid approach has increased substantially in the last couple of years.
Very much so. Anything you would add to that, Jonathan?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're all forced quite rapidly to adapt our technology solutions. Prior to joining WolfVision, I worked in higher education for 18 years. The early days of hybrid technology with traditional standards-based conferencing. It's a totally different world now. So it's commonplace. Lessons were learned, I think, during the pandemic. We adapted quickly. Lots of solutions were thrown into the air, but I think the dust has definitely settled now. And technology providers like Zoom, like WolfVision, have tailored their solutions to make it easier to transition, importantly, from in-room teaching to hybrid and back and forth quite easily, rather than it being a staged event with pre-planning. I think it needs to be autonomous. I think also the type of spaces that it's used in, so not just traditional meeting rooms or teaching spaces, active learning environments. So there's still challenges we need to overcome, but it's certainly very exciting for us as a manufacturer in that space.
So speaking of exciting, I do want to get into the technical details, and I know I have the right people to do that. So if we are having distance learning, hybrid learning in these various education spaces, I want to talk about some of the foundational technologies that make it effective. We can't just have it be adequate, right? People aren't going to settle for a satisfactory experience. It really has to be a high-quality experience. So what technologies underpin that and enable that? And I'd also like you to think about signal distribution and signal transmission. What's going to give you the reliability and the stability to make sure, again, that you have a high-quality experience where people feel like they're fully engaged?
So for us, Zoom, the platform has everything to do as to how you deliver that content effectively and the tools that you're going to give the learners when they are either on-prem or in the hybrid world. Now, when we're talking about hybrid learning, when you're talking people that are on-prem as well as virtual, then we have a question of equity. So tools like you mentioned in these devices like cameras, we want to make sure that if I am learning virtually, that I'm seeing my professor crisp, that the image is coming really, really nice, because I want to feel like I'm in class. Obviously, audio is incredibly important, and then all the video tools like document cameras and other devices that are going to start displaying media to those remote participants as well as those that are in the room. So if I have projectors and I want to see some of these content, some of this physical media and things that are needed in order to have an effective learning journey, these things have to be high quality, so that way I can learn and I can actually, get a good experience out of my class. So now the question becomes, and this was something that we started exploring at Zoom: how do we provide equity in a world where the platforms are getting so many tools for the virtual learners, but then those tools are not available for the on-prem learners, which 3-4 years back, that the opposite was true. All the learners on-prem had all the tools, but then now in the virtual learners did not have any tools, and then now we have a scenario where all the virtual learners have far more tools than those on-prem. So we always exploring how do we provide equity to both environments, and just make sure that line is very thin.
That equity piece is very, very important, absolutely critical. On the technology side, what would you add, Jonathan, is foundational to a high-quality experience for remote learners and in-person learners, and also, as I say, the signal distribution, signal transmission to make sure it's faithful and high quality?
Yeah, I think the initial jump to hybrid, that I'd say the experience was degraded in some way, so it was basic presentation sharing within classrooms just to quickly move online. It's a different landscape now. So obviously our integration with Zoom, so one-touch camera transition from our visualizer technology, again, to make it seamless. But again, wireless presentation, another core competency of ours to bring that sort of multi-device connectivity into those online calls. So it's really important. I think accessibility for students within universities, so the students with varying needs, and that's something we can address through technology, make it accessible. Whether that's with hearing impairment, special educational needs, we should leverage that technology, use that power, and that's something we're learning all the time.
I think we're noticing, you also mentioned as to how we're transmitting some of these video signals, a lot of these AV signals. I think AV over IP is here to stay. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think from voice over IP back in the early 2000s, we're here now with video. Obviously, there is some taboo for some administrators, and those are things that, as an industry, we have to work with them in order to make that migration. But we're seeing a lot of universities that are embracing the AV over IP side of the house to be far more successful, because they now have more resources available to them in order to teach effectively, in order for them to have events and leverage all these different assets, video assets or audio assets that are scattered throughout campus to service a session. So there's a lot of work ahead of us, but I do believe that this is the future. As Zoom, we have embraced it, and we are continuing to embrace just doing everything through networks and really finding ways to become more efficient on that side of the house.
What about pain points that you're finding in distance learning, hybrid learning, remote learning? Are there particular sensitivities or areas of difficulty that you have identified that maybe haven't been fully resolved yet, but that you're working on diligently?
So usually it comes down to process and workflow. At the end of the day, every institution has different way to do that, and within the institution, every school, every professor has multiple different ways. So we have professors that fully embrace technology, let's say like digital whiteboards, where there's professors that still want to use the old markers on a regular whiteboard that's analog. So how do we start bridging that gap between professors and individuals that like very traditional tools that have been around for centuries, as opposed to now new tools that can immediately register all that content into LMSs, and really just kind of turning that page to that new wave of learners and that new wave of ways to collaborate. So there's a lot of challenges. I would say one of the biggest ones is going to be workflow. The other one I just mentioned is how do we get those administrators to understand that AV over IP, AV is now something that they need to start looking into the network, bringing it in, optimize networks to do that, to stream media over networks. So like I said, it's possible. We see when it's done correctly, it works really well, but we need to kind of get that taboo off some of the administrators in order to make that in order to make those networks far more efficient.
Any closing thoughts, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think certainly around the end user. So I think it's important to acknowledge that the end user sort of technology, ability and awareness, people are on different stages of that technology curve. So we need to provide a solution that enables the non-tech native to come and easily transition from in-room teaching to hybrid, and the super user to leverage all the features, the AI tools in the future. So that presents a challenge because it's a completely different set of users, different levels of ability. So that's something we need to refine all the time.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, Felipe and Jonathan, for your insights about distance learning, about hybrid learning. I agree with you both. I don't think this trend is going anywhere, and I certainly concur that although the pandemic might have been a catalyzing moment, we also do are now educating a different generation that is digital native, that is media native, that likes things on demand, that likes things to be kind of shaped to their own workflow rather than having a one-size-fits-all workflow. So it's really about technology that will facilitate a very high-quality, equitable experience of that. I don't think we're going back, we're only going forward. So thank you for helping us understand where we're going. I really appreciate the insights.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
It was great to be here.
My name is Dan Ferrisi. I am Group Director, Content and Editorial, Industrial and Tech at Emerald, here at the HDBaseT Alliance booth at ISE 2026, where we are celebrating 15 years of HDBaseT.